also known as Sheets' fantasy. This is Sheets' wheelhouse. He's really good with this stuff, and you get to play all the showdowns. You get to play the games. You get to adjust for late swaps. That's the part I'm really going to enjoy, but it should be fun.
Yeah, I like experimenting with different slate sizes because again, it's always a challenge to figure out whether to what extent to play the best plays versus to what extent to get unique, and how unique do you want to get? When you know that by doing so you're not playing the best plays. So 3 games is not something we see too often in the NFL. So and what's cool about this slate is that as Bobby mentioned, all 3 games they're all island games, and it's late swap for all of them. And at first glance, I don't really see. I'm just looking at quarterback, for example. Like anybody, I have one guy that's going to be lower than the others, but everybody else looks pretty close. So my initial read is to delay. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Let's go through it game by game and see if we can figure it out.
Yeah, let's go through it game by game, because that is something that I thought was interesting, and it's interesting to see how the ownership goes, because you get ownership for like multiple receivers for certain teams and really high ownership, like for the Steelers, but you have the lowest owned quarterback in that game. So
right. Right.
And I think that this is going to be there's going to be some ways you can make something happen. I mean, remember, there's only 2 starting quarterbacks playing on this slate. That everybody else is a backup, and the 2 starters have had their moments. Goff's been really good,
and they're all in the last game.
What's that?
They're both in the last game.
Yeah, so it's kind of that seems like that's what people are going to do. But let's talk about the first one, Minnesota and Cincinnati. What do you have here on the?
Yeah, so I guess that was the end, or at least temporarily the end of the Josh Dobbs experience. It was nice though. I mean, he was working for NASA or something. Yeah, he was like a hero for like a couple of weeks. And then, so Nick Mullins at 5K, he's projecting as the top point per dollar play on the slate. I don't know. Is Justin Jefferson playing?
He's supposed to. As of right now, we're expecting to play.
Well, that's sort of interesting because I don't even have him projected. So I guess I'm gonna have to redo that. Oh no, I do have him projected. I don't have him projected all that great. Let me just see. I guess so. 18 fantasy points is not bad. But yeah, do we trust Nick Mullins to be able to get him the ball? Oh, maybe. I do think that Cincinnati is. How do I put this? It's just kind of a better football team. I think they have a better coach. I think they have a better system. I think Cincinnati's going to win, if that means anything to anybody. I think Cincinnati's defense isn't bad either. So I'm probably more inclined to play the Cincinnati side of this game. So with that said, Jake Browning, very efficient. Mixon has been getting all the work, although, and we'll get to this in a second. So Jamar Chase seems really freaking cheap if you want to know the truth at 7,600. But on a 3-game slate, is a 3-game slate low enough to play Chase Brown? That is a very, very relevant question. Now, he's not, 4K flat or anything like that, but 4,800, he's been getting some, some high upside carries. You know what I mean?
19 fantasy points last week.
Yeah, well, he's got they're big receptions, whatever. But the guy's got a lot of speed, and that's an interesting philosophical question: is 3-game slate low enough to play him? I guess that's an interesting question. So I would start by saying that I think Cincinnati is probably the better target here. To play Browning makes sense. To play Mixon makes sense. To play Chase makes sense. I didn't really look at like the drop downers yet, like T. Higgins or anything like that. What do you think of this game?
Yeah, so I'm sort of with you. I like the Bengals, and I honestly think they should be favored by more than 3. I think that that's the way that I would treat this game. I like the idea of Chase Brown. I feel like if he was 4K, it would be a lot easier of a play. I guess some people would actually probably get on it. The question you'd ask, what I ask myself is, would I be playing him as a receiver at 4,800? Because he had some big plays in the passing game. He had 3 receptions last week. He does get mostly just carry the ball, but he's explosive. Like they'll use him that way a little bit with Browning. you look for the recent trends of these quarterbacks, and he's throwing the ball to the running back a lot. So I could see the Chase Brown thing. I have both Chase Brown and Ty Chandler on the further reaching plays that I might get to, because Ty Chandler also makes some sense on the other side of 5,300. But I'm going to be more on I'll be overweight the Mixon. I'll be overweight the Chase, and I'll probably be underweight Jefferson if he is playing. If he is not playing, TJ Hawkinson will be popular, but I'll be one of the people playing TJ Hawkinson. And I still like TJ Hawkinson anyway. So I would lean on it, something like that. I would rather not play the quarterbacks in this game at pretty high ownership. I actually think, if I was, I think that Browning makes the most sense. But because of my belief that the Bengals are going to be able to win this game, I'm sort of going to go the other way and say that if I had to, I might go with Mullins. But I don't like these quarterbacks as much as the later quarterbacks. I do like the idea of getting exposure to Chase and the other receivers, Boyd, Higgins, less so, but more Boyd than Higgins just because the price. He's a 4,100. But maybe Chase Brown is just a better idea than those guys. I just feel like there's a lot of weapons all of a sudden for Cincinnati. Maybe I do throw a hammer stack with Browning, but mostly I think it's going to be just getting overexposed, having at least one or two of the skill players on most of my teams. Just because there's a lot of them here, and Hawkinson will be my main one for Minnesota. All right. And look at what's crazy about these games is that the totals are still fairly reasonable considering the situation. Like these backup quarterbacks and fairly decent defenses, and with the Bengals and the Steelers and stuff. It's kind of weird. All right. What are your thoughts on the Pittsburgh Indy game?
So as you mentioned, Pittsburgh's receivers are going to be probably cheap because Pickens is out, right? And yet you have Trubisky, right?
Pickens is out. Oh, Pickett, you're saying is out.
Pickett. Oh, I thought Pickens was out. Okay, anyway.
I didn't have him out yet.
Yeah, so we have Trubisky is rates to be the lowest owned quarterback. And I have to say that I don't mind it. I really don't. I mean, it's not great, but it's not like it's really not like any of these other quarterbacks are that great either. I don't know what to say. So I don't mind that. I don't mind playing Trubisky as the lowest owned guy. I have the same issues as usual with the running backs from Pittsburgh, just because it's a timeshare. And I bet, I'm not going to bet, but I would imagine that you might even suggest maybe some double running backs builds in a 3-game slate. I know you would on a showdown. I don't know if you would go there on a 3-game slate, but to play Warren and Harris together, what that does, it does capture all the Pittsburgh running game, for whatever that means. But I think I'm just inclined to just do just the regular thing, to play Trubisky with the receivers, to play with Pickens. Pickens is only 4,800. I mean, I'd rather play him than Deontay Johnson, if you want to know the truth. But Pat Freiermuth is really cheap, and you mentioned all this. So I think in a weird way, what I think what a lot of people will do, I think they'll do what makes sense, and that's to play these cheap receivers but not play Trubisky as quarterback. Maybe I will play Trubisky as quarterback. Maybe that's enough to get me a little bit different. So on that side of it, I'm just dumb. I just don't want to play the timeshare running backs. And then in the Indianapolis side, so now you get Zach Moss, who's got the same role. He's got get all the work. Now he's 6,200 up. 3-game slate, rates to be about 50% owned or so. Certainly makes sense. Minshew, certainly reasonable. Pittman, certainly reasonable. So, I mean, I don't know, nothing particularly fancy. It looks like a very soft pricing slate, no? I mean, it looks like you play almost whoever you want here.
That's why I said I want to be underweight Jefferson if he plays. But the truth is, it's hard because you just have that money left over sometimes,
Yeah.
I like a lot of what you said. I'm a little frustrated with Pickens because he was killing it, and then the injury a couple weeks ago, and he cost me the $100 single entry. I needed 4 more fantasy points, and he literally had 0 fantasy points after the first quarter. I think it was maybe the first part of the second quarter. Anyway, I think Trubisky is a staple for me this week. I'm in on Trubisky.
Oh wow!
I have no hesitation. First of all, one thing I always look at, especially on these smaller slates, is he can move. Like he can actually run. He had 30 yards rushing and a touchdown last week rushing. He just had 22 fantasy points. I'm surprised, to be honest, that people would rather play Nick Mullins than him. That people would rather play. I get the Browning thing a little bit more because he's looked good, and I even get the Minshew to some extent, but I don't think it should be a big gap. And I am in on Trubisky. It's really easy to do, and the best play to me though of all of them is Freiermuth. I think Freiermuth is the stud of all studs, at tight end this week. I also think if you're playing, if we're talking about getting weird with a build and you want to do the Chase and Jefferson spend ups with 6,200 Moss, use that most expensive defense. I think you could look at some weird Connor Hayward and Fryer instead, because I think there's he is at 2,500 anyway. I just thought of him as a pivot off of Tanner Hudson at 700 cheaper if you want to get really creative at no ownership. They do use him occasionally. I think that's probably getting a little thin, but again, maybe for showdown, that's the right thing to do. But before the game though, for this slate, I'm in on Johnson. He's my favorite. Pickens is my second favorite of the receivers. I actually think you could probably extend it and even throw a Calvin Austin lineup to get creative. That guy has explosive ability, and it's whatever's happening is not working right now in Pittsburgh. I think that there's a chance he could play more snaps as the third, and not Allen Robinson, and just get a chance at a big play at 3K. But you may not need it on this slate. I like both the running backs. This is their priorities for me. This whole game is a priority. The indie games tend to get weird, even though they want to just run the ball a lot of the time. They always get wonky, these games. So Zach Moss, even with the high ownership, I still like the play. But I think you can get something out of playing the passing game too. I think Pittman is going to be crazy popular, and I really like him, by the way. I think it makes a lot of sense to spend your money with him. I think he's actually safer in some ways than Chase and Higgins. Than Chase and Jefferson. But I think that he is going to be a little bit overowned, where maybe you could play Alec Pierce at somewhat low ownership. He'll have probably 10%. Josh Downs at maybe 20%. I think that's an interesting route to go. But I want to be overweight this game in general, and I will even the real better play than the Hayward. But again, Hayward more of the showdown play. Granson, I think, is actually in play on the regular slate at 2,600. I'm worried that they're going to spread it around, so I'm probably not going to end up using him. And I really like Freiermuth and Hawkinson. But my main point is I just want to be overweight everything this game for the most part, except for, and I love Pittman, but I might have to lower a little bit of Pittman, and because right now I would have 100% of Zach Moss and 80% of Pittman. And I just think that's not the right thing to do. So I'm going to probably lower it a little bit. But I overall, this is the game I want to target. Second, well, the next game is the obvious one. This game, I just want to be overweight everything.
I mean, I don't know where the popularity is going to come in or whatever. I mean, it's been a while since Detroit has played particularly well, and it's been a while since Denver has played particularly poorly. It seems as though these teams are sort of going in opposite directions. Yet for some reason, I just have this sense Detroit's going to be able to put up a number here. I think that you play Goff, obviously you play Jameson Williams. That's a non-starter. Okay, you absolutely have to play him. Yeah. And I think that you could play any of these receivers really. I think St. Brown, obviously. But I think you play Khalif Raymond at 3K, especially. I mean, obviously, if what's his name is out, like Josh Reynolds, then I think both these guys actually become pretty popular. Jameson Williams and Khalif Raymond, and clearly, what's his name, the tight end. Is he 6K yet? All right. Well, this is actually what he should be. Okay. Maybe he doesn't get owned as much because he's 6K. I mean, who else is tight end? We have Hawkinson, Freiermuth. That's really it, right? The other guys are real cheap.
Yeah. They're all awesome.
Yeah. So it's Hawkinson, Freiermuth, and Laporta will probably be the three tight ends that get played. But yeah, and as far as the Denver side goes, I don't know, man. I think Detroit. Listen, they haven't played as well recently, but I still think they're still in playoff contention, right? They still have play. I think the coach still plays with a lot of pride. I think he wants to get his defense back in order again.
Oh, they're in good shape actually.
I know that, but they were 8-2. I think now they're 8-4 or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that the only guy I really would want to play from Denver, and just because the guy just is so good at getting freaking touchdowns, getting his feet down, is freaking Cortland Sutton. The guy's amazing.
He's really good.
So just because it's a 3-game slate and touchdowns are going to be just so important in a 3-game slate, I would play him over all the other Denver guys, honestly. So I'll throw him in there. I don't think that this is a particularly great game for Russell Wilson, but then again, like you said, you've pointed out to me that sometimes Detroit just gets into these freaking shootouts. I just don't know if Denver's can keep up with that right now. I mean, I say that, and yet they're what? They've won 5 out of 6, whatever.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I think it seems like it's on this fast track. I think Detroit puts up a really good game. I'd be overweight on the Detroit guys and not as overweight on the Denver guys.
So I actually don't disagree about the Detroit having I think they're going to have their offense will bounce back. What I would say is beware, like Denver's had some pieces missing and they had the fluky games. Their defense has been really, really good.
Yeah, I know.
And that St. Brown play, which feels like when I first thought about it, was my obvious thing. And I started thinking about Surtain on the other. I'm not so sure I want to do the 40% of him. I do feel good about the Cortland Sutton. I'm okay with eating the chalk on Sutton. I agree. I think he's awesome. My Jerry Jeudy pointing out how he never gets there, that's been on big slates. For him to be lower owned on this slate than he was on an 11-gamer or whatever, I think that's kind of interesting. You know what I mean? He's going to have lower ownership than it's just perception. That's how it happens. And everybody focuses on some other great plays. If you did want value, I would throw Marvin Mims' hat into the conversation. Just of weird guys, maybe again more of a sort of like the Austin or what's his name in Showdown. Maybe Mims is the Showdown guy for you. But I actually like the idea of playing the Detroit side of it with one of the cheap receivers. Reynolds is getting lower ownership right now than Williams. I like being over. I'll be overweight probably all these guys. What worries me is Donovan Peoples-Jones is there too now. So there's another guy, and if they have a chance, or even if they're like things are going well, they could like run a play for. They ran one near the goal line not near the goal line, but like inside the 30 or whatever for him last week. It worries me a little bit that he might hurt some of the snaps, which are already limited for Williams and Reynolds. But I do think Reynolds is getting a little too overlooked. So I'll be overweight the Reynolds, Williams, underweight the Brown, overweight the Raymond, which is you're going to get no ownership on the overweight. I'll throw even a couple Donovan Peoples-Jones lineups in. On the Denver side, I just don't. The thing that you didn't mention, and I think it's interesting that you didn't mention it. Javonte Williams really hasn't gotten there, like for this price compared to where we think Zach Moss or Joe Mixon, just any of the running backs. Then both Detroit guys. The 58, both Pittsburgh guys, the 5,800, the 5,300 for Chandler. Like, why is he a better play than these guys? I love the talent. He hasn't had that game where I feel like I needed him. I also think Samaje Perine, again, Showdown probably as a play, but I think is a pretty interesting one. And I'm flirting with the idea of, we mentioned both running backs in Pittsburgh. I think you could consider the double running back. I mean, remember, this Denver team is going to give up the most rushing touchdowns of all time just based on one game, really. Yeah, they give up 8 rushing touchdowns in that one game against Miami. Maybe we get a version of that with Gibbs and Montgomery. I prefer Gibbs. They're both going to be well owned. I initially was going to be overweight Montgomery, thinking he'd be low owned. Now I'll be underweight Montgomery. But I do think I'll throw in a couple of double stacks with their running game with Wilson on the other side and maybe Sutton and Jeudy or Mims.
You know what? There's one guy that we didn't talk as much about. We probably should have. Is how old do you think Ty Chandler's going to be?
What do I think he's going to be?
How old do you think Ty Chandler's going to be with Madison out?
I think he's going to have some ownership, but like you're still comparing him to both Pittsburgh backs and Javonte Williams, so it's kind of an interesting he'll probably get the most work of any of those guys.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not comparing him with the Pittsburgh guys because I think he gets more work than the Pittsburgh guys. I'm comparing him to Javonte Williams.
I would say he gets the highest percentage of his team's work. Whether they're running the ball that much, I don't know that part. You know what I mean?
Right. But yeah, I think that Chandler.
I like the Chandler idea, though.
Moss this is obvious, right? And well, who gets more work between? Well, who gets work on the Detroit side? Is it just? No? It's both these guys, Gibbs and Montgomery. So I'm not. So it's Chandler, Moss, and Javonte Williams are the three kind of lead backs. Who do you like better between St. Brown and Chase? How about that?
Chase.
Okay.
I don't like saying that answer.
I think most people are going to have one of those in their lineups.
I think that Justin Jefferson will be the highest owned of all of them.
Oh, you think so? With the Mullins? Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Maybe the Mullins thing will throw it off a little bit, but it's Browning with Chase, and you actually have a tough one-on-one matchup for St. Brown. So, but they may go one-on-one a little bit more because of that. So I'm in on but I really do like the Detroit rushing game, and I would lean on Gibbs. I don't want to overly worry about the percentage. I like it seems pretty easy to make. I think most people are going to go 3 running backs this week. Do you think I think that makes the most sense.
I'm trying to do something. So who's a cheap tight end? Is there a cheap tight end here this week that's good or no?
Well, Granson would be the one that I think you'd use.
So you could play St. Brown, Jefferson, and Chase, like all in the same lineup. You maybe one off Trubisky, maybe. And if you play Chandler at running back, then you have 55,000 left, and you could play either. If there's any other cheapo at flex, you could play.
I think you need some correlation with Trubisky if you're going to play him. Like just play Freiermuth.
Well, let's play Freiermuth then. Okay, so you Freiermuth over here, and then we can play 6,200 for Zach Moss, and there you have it. You know what I mean? Like
there it is,
and there it is. So my point is that I did this in 5 seconds, which means that I think that all these guys are going to be really popular. It's like
you guys are all going to, I don't think Granson's going to be,
no.
And I don't think that Ty Chandler is going to be overly popular. I don't think he's going above 20%.
Okay.
Because I think that the Pittsburgh. I like the way you weigh it. I used to weigh it the same, but then when I see the rushing numbers at the end of the game and the guys are still getting more carries than my guy who has all of his share of the backfield, I'm just gonna play those Pittsburgh guys. Like
the fact is they're only a 3-point underdog, right? Like you said, listen, we both think it should be more, but nonetheless, I mean, it's still they're only a 3-point underdog, and he is the lead back. I mean, he's gonna.
I actually think you might get more out of him in the passing game. Like I actually think that the narrative of we created actually is a better game.
Better. I mean, I don't know. It's
PPR.
Yeah, I think he's probably the best play. We'll see. Mixon, obviously makes a lot of sense too. Is Mixon the most expensive? He's 6,600.
Yeah.
I'm not getting to Gibbs at 67, I don't think.
I will.
Oh, you like that, huh?
I really like Gibbs. I mean, this is the way you beat Denver is on the ground, and
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but you know what? You know who's going to get the rushing touchdown? Will be Jameson Williams. There you go.
That's true. They'll do that. They will. They'll run that play for him. Probably. They always seem to.
Yep.
And you will see. If I'm able to get to my showdown, if I end up doing the showdown thing, I'll definitely have a few Jameson Williams captains. What about Jameson Williams and Josh Reynolds in the same lineup in the showdown? That'd be pretty sweet.
I don't like Josh Reynolds really.
You don't like him?
I don't know. He's hurt anyway. I mean, I don't know.
If he's out, by the way, that does open up. It's going to make Jameson Williams more popular, like really popupopular.
Yeah.
It makes Khalif Raymond and Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Well, yeah, the Khalif Raymond one would be the one I'd be interested in, I think.
Well, just remember, though, they got this guy and they're playing him already for a reason.
Who, Donovan Peoples-Jones?
Yeah.
How many did he get? Like 3 or 4 targets?
No. He got on the field late. But it was like his first week, and they ran a play for him like inside the 30.
Okay.
And I'm just saying if we lose Reynolds, but if not, even I would still probably take a shot on him. I just think it's worth it because I could see Goff going. I could see this being a big game for them. I don't know if it's going to be Goff necessarily, but I feel like they're going to score a lot of touchdowns, and getting any exposure to these cheap unowned guys is probably a good idea. All right. So with that, I am going to try to do something tomorrow morning. I can't make any promises because I've got some family commitment things.
I should be down with this. What time you think?
We could say 11 Eastern.
You know what? Count me in for now.
Okay, Sam, count me in for now.
Yeah.
But I'm not guaranteeing, but I'll definitely try to make it happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, good luck to everybody this weekend. We'll definitely be live 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, and hopefully we'll be talking about on that show how we won everything on Saturday because of all the good advice we give out then. So, anyway, good luck to everybody this week. Talk to you soon.